Okay, so real quick, I may have partially lost my voice or something, so if it sounds weird at any point, there's the reason. I don't know where this came from, I just gotta get through it. If we talk about the Porzingis trade, because I've been revisiting trades lately, I think the craziest thing about this move was how quickly it happened, because I remember it was some random day. I don't even think it was at the trade deadline, if I remember correctly, although it might have been. But it was like, there were a little bit of rumors about, there's a rift between the Knicks and Porzingis, and his brother is involved. And then within like an hour, Porzingis was on the Mavs. And it was like, wait a minute, Porzingis and Luka are now teammates? And it just happened so quickly that it felt like it was really difficult to process or know what was really going on. In a way, it seemed like the Knicks already had something lined up, and they just needed the okay from whoever. James Dolan, potentially somebody else, I don't know. And I remember the big controversy about it being that Porzingis would actually sign his qualifying offer, if that is how it goes, to where he could potentially become a unrestricted free agent after the season, I believe, right? That's how it all works out. I mean, typically guys just get extended on their rookie contract, so this type of thing doesn't pop up too much, especially for guys of Porzingis' level. So it was like, wow, like, is he really going to do that? Is he really going to put himself at risk after coming back from an ACL injury? And I feel like the Knicks, they probably could have called Porzingis' bluff a little bit on that one. I mean, this is the make it or break it point of the trade, right? Because the stuff they got back has proven to not be that great. I mean, the Mavs picks, the cap space, which led to a whole bunch of blah players. Dennis Smith has been bad. Granted, those picks could still become something else, but even then it's like, is it going to be as good as Porzingis? Probably not. I mean, who knows? But it's like, could they have won Porzingis back? You know? Let's say if there was some changing of the guard between coaches and some front office stuff, which has happened since, by the way. I mean, Leon Rose, and now there's going to be a new coach eventually for this team. Could that have been the type of thing to have convinced Porzingis to stay? I don't know. Because even as you dive into the stuff now about Porzingis' brother being his agent, and Porzingis wasn't exactly making life easy for the Knicks and whatever, it is still all a little clouded, I guess. A bit of he said, she said, and not just the bare facts, I guess. Of course, there have been a decent amount of Knicks fans who have just been all in on, like, they had to trade him, Porzingis wanted out, and then there's people who are non-Knicks, people who are like, why the hell would you trade Porzingis? And I don't know who's right and whatever, you know? But it is still tough to believe that the relationship was really just not fixable at all. I mean, maybe, like, I wasn't there day in and day out, and I didn't see the inside stuff, so perhaps, but it is tough to believe that it really got to that point. And it's also tough to believe that Porzingis really would have went through with the qualifying offer and all that. But perhaps, maybe he was just that determined to not be with the Knicks anymore. Now, as far as how he got to that point, could we blame that on the Knicks? It's certainly easy to, given their track record, and perhaps Porzingis saw some things and met some people that he wasn't a fan of for whatever reason. It's a possibility. Maybe Porzingis is just a really difficult guy. Up to this point in Dallas, it's seemed pretty okay. We'll have to see moving forward. But it's kind of wild to think about if Porzingis was good with the Knicks, or if they found a way to patch up the Rocky relationship. How much different would the team look just for this previous season? I mean, you're talking about Porzingis nursing an ACL injury, so he probably wouldn't have been setting the world on fire, although he eventually did start to do that with the Mavs, so maybe about midway through the season or so, the Knicks would be asking him to do more than the Mavs did. He also wouldn't be able to play off of Luka or be in Rick Carlisle's system, so, you know, take all that for what you will. But you have to imagine, I don't know who the point guard would be. Would it be Elfrid Payton? Probably. Two guard. I mean, there's a chance that the Knicks don't go about free agency the same way. I mean, they would have given Porzingis a whole lot of money. $27 million to be exact. And then they wouldn't have been able to sign all those random dudes. I think they still would have had some cap space. So, they could have got whoever. They probably don't sign Julius Randle. Maybe you could have signed a wing or something, got yourself some more shooting and ball handling and all that. And I imagine they still draft RJ Barrett. So then we're talking about Elfrid Payton, some two-guard, RJ Barrett, Porzingis, Mitchell Robinson, some other center, because I imagine Robinson wouldn't be starting at center like that because it just seems like they haven't given him the position like that. How good would that team be? Potentially a playoff team in the East. I mean, the Magic finished the year at 30 wins, so for whatever that's worth. I guess it really would have depended on what else they could have done, just little moves here and there to round out the roster. But regardless of whether they would have made it or not, that team sounds a lot more exciting than what it is right now. I mean, in some ways, this was kind of like a non-season for the Knicks because, again, Dennis Smith fell apart and other things. I mean, I've been talking about the Knicks a decent amount the past 2 weeks, so I don't want to dive into all that as much. I want to remember the trade specifically. I guess we can remember the trade a bit from Dallas's angle. I mean, they got rid of pretty much everybody who wasn't all on with Luka with this move, right? Because it was Dennis Smith and DeAndre Jordan moving, and Wesley Matthews as well. And that was a thing. When Luka showed up, it wasn't as if they were fighting or anything, but you could tell the veterans were not comfortable giving the entire team to Luka, and they should have been because he was their best player basically from his first game. And speaking on Dallas's perspective on this move a little bit more, I feel like it does mirror the Luka move a little bit because they did give up some stuff. I mean, they gave the Hawks an extra pick and it became Cam Reddish, so okay, there you go. But they, or maybe it became DeAndre Hunter, I don't remember exactly, but they were confident in giving up an extra pick to the Hawks for Luka because they were confident that Luka was that good, and they ended up being right. And it seemed like the same thing happened with the Knicks, where they were like, all right, 2 firsts, fine. Porzingis and Luka are going to be that good together, we'll give you the 2 picks. And by all accounts, Dallas is one of the more forward-thinking teams in terms of analytics and, the threes they attempt and all that stuff. And it's always interesting to see when teams like that choose to go all in on trading future assets. I mean, Houston has been doing that for years now, and I feel like Dallas took on a similar idea, which was, okay, we've got our superstar. We've got the guy who can be the best player on a title team. We assume. We have to really see with Luka, but so far he's checked all the boxes. So let's get aggressive. Let's get our number 2 guy, and we got to give up some picks, so what? So that's cool. The other thing to talk about with the picks they gave up is that the Stepien rule is definitely going to screw them over in terms of future moves. They could not have traded this year's pick because they owe next year's to the Knicks. They can't trade 2022's because they owe 2023 to the Knicks. So that is going to, kind of slow down the moves they can make and the picks they can trade. I guess they can still move them on draft night, if I remember the way that whole thing works. There's ways around it, but you can't just trade for some guy at the deadline with your pick because of the way that they, sent them out. But at the same time, they do still have 2 of their picks over the next 4 NBA drafts. So it's what if they nail one of those picks, And now looking at those picks from the perspective of New York, and these are things I've talked about, so I don't want to talk about it too much. That's why I saved it till basically the end of the video. But there was a report recently where the Knicks said that they think they're in a position to trade for a disgruntled star. I made a video where I predicted they would make some sort of a significant move this offseason. Based on the potential disgruntled stars, I think Buddy Hield is probably the prime suspect. The Knicks definitely have the draft picks to make a move for a guy like Hield. I don't know if they have the players for it. I also don't really know what the Kings would want. They have a lot of good players, but the team just hasn't been able to figure it out. So I don't know, maybe a 3-team deal if the Kings just really wanted some sort of a player that they could buy into long term. But the Knicks definitely have the draft picks for some sort of a move. Of course, there were some Chris Paul rumors Don't know. I mean, could they trade for Rudy Gobert? Well, I mean, it certainly wouldn't be the most fun move, but in terms of effectiveness, it would probably make them, like, the best defensive team in the league, especially if they also signed Thibodeau with it, and, I mean, that would probably be the most instant improvement option if Gobert became really available. I also don't think it would take a whole bunch of picks to get Gobert either, but then it's like, do you want to give Gobert a max? And I've talked about all this. We'll have to see what they do. But regardless, the Porzingis trade was really nuts, man. I mean, for a young star like that to just be traded on his rookie contract, like how often does that happen? I mean, that's like Chris Webber levels of weirdness. And of course, it just happened to be the Knicks because it just always has to be the Knicks.